What's up, everybody? Welcome on Into One Soccer. Today, Eddie Petrilla, Jordan Wilson, and Mr. Gareth Wheeler with you guys. Literally breaking news right here on our phones. That's it. Once in a while, you get a mister. You get a mister. But the
like
phones were dinging. We have ourselves the roster for the Gold Cup for the Canadian men. Taking a look at it. A few surprises, I guess, only because, we've been talking about a congested schedule. Club World Cup as well going to be happening around the same time. However, despite all that, it looks like Stefan Eustachio, even though he has the Club World Cup commitments with Porto, will be on the team. Same with Tajon Buchanan, because he could see time with Inter Milan as well. Biggest surprise, though, guys, because we're trying to still figure out where he's going to sign, of course, is going to be Jonathan David, because we don't know where he's going to go. And if he signs with the team who's in that tournament, he could be gone. But what do you make, Wheels? I'll get this started with you, of Jonathan David in particular being on the team.
This is great news for Marsch and the team and the setup that he's developed, that these players want to be there, despite uncertainty around their future careers. I'm specifically looking at Tajon Buchanan and Jonathan David here. The fact that they're in camp, willing to participate, and want to be part of the squad really bodes well in terms of the unit, the collective, and the mentality of the players, and their commitment to this national team. I am surprised, however, particularly in Jonathan David's case, because he's a player. He doesn't have a contract beyond the end of June, and the biggest decision of his professional life lay ahead. Where to go next and what that right fit may be. And largely, a lot of young players that are in similar situations will just stay away until their club football's resolved. I give David a lot of credit that he is spending his time with his Canada teammates being part of everything to do with the Canadian Shield and the Gold Cup. With that being said, I think that now the pressure is on Jesse Marsch's shoulders to do the player right. Because the last game that they played, which was a meaningless third place game, Alphonso Davies suffered an injury that will keep him out until November. I just wouldn't take any risks. Like, I'd want David, if I was Marsch, around the group, to be part of the talks, to be part of the group. But I mean, I am not putting him on the field if I'm Marsch until that contract is signed. And perhaps it might not be for these two home Canadian Shield matches. Perhaps he'll sign on the dotted line ahead of the Gold Cup, where it's like green light, full steam ahead. I still think that you need to proceed with a little bit of caution as well, because you want a player going to their next club, starting on the right foot, not injured, just in a really good place. So it's complicated for Marsch. I understand that he's building towards next summer. We're just about a year out from the World Cup, but I think that he needs to take some real consideration into how he uses these players, even the ones that want to be there.
Wheels just said it, but we need to reiterate. Chills, we'll get into your overalls, by the way, which I adore right now. Getting real summer weather out there. Loving the overalls. However, Wheels said it, but we have to reiterate. It's not like he's transferring clubs. He's out of contract. Furthermore, said goodbye to his club that he just spent so many years at and was a big dog at that club. So it's not a situation where everything is dandy. He's looking to resign. When it sticks out to me that he wants to be a part of the club, two things stick out to me: that he's a purist, wants to obviously give back to his country and play with his brothers. But another part, it has to be close to being over the line somewhere. Because I can't see someone out of contract, a big name like this. We've been talking about Jonathan David for over 2 years of where he can end up and where he's going to go. And now he's let his contract run out and is still playing top football. So he has to be like 90% somewhere in, knowing that he's going to sign. But I agree with Wheels. Like, you can't play him. You can't. You cannot. But I want to also say there are two players on this team that I can't see Canada playing without. And we're going to see. Maurice Bombito is the number one. And then who does what Jonathan David does? Who fills in the gap in that 10 role and drops down deep? Who supplies the service and crosses, but also the finishes in the box? So this is going to be a real time for Marsch to really see if he can have other players adapt that role in that system and see where they lie. But two great tests again against Ukraine and Ivory Coast.
Andy, if Jonathan David gets onto the field, I'm watching like this. Like, I'm just like,
nervous.
I'll take off my glasses. I'm like, because right now just the player comes first. Look, like, heading into next summer, you're not going to be like, oh, remember they played that game the summer before. Like there's so much football to be played between now and that time. There will be other matches that he's going to feature in Canada. And I think we're quite confident in what David can bring to the table. Same thing to a certain degree for Tajon Buchanan. A big decision is made, and he and Eustachio, and with Juventus and Inter and some of the clubs that have been, circling around Jonathan David for his services playing at the Club World Cup, like, it's very busy for these players. This is a lot of football for these players. And I want to make sure that they're in a good way physically over the course of the next year so there's no hiccups across the way. So I don't think that these are easy decisions for Jesse Marsch to make. I think it just complicates things a little bit more. Even when you don't have Bombito and Davies, like none of this is easy.
Well, and it also is worth noting he's taking a risk by naming David and Buchanan, because if they do in fact go and have a Club World Cup experience, those are 2 roster spots that Canada will lose. They cannot replace that. So those will be 2 spots where, the depth will be affected. Yeah. So, Jesse Marsch taking a chance as well when it comes to that. Before the Gold Cup, though, guys, we know that there's this Canadian Shield that will be played, and it kicks off Saturday in Toronto. Canada will play Ukraine and the Ivory Coast. New Zealand is also part of the competition. Jordo, what are reasons to be excited for these upcoming matches?
The biggest one, obviously, being at home, and there's not enough games there. So you just get that vibe in the summertime. It's the place to be. I will be there. Well, I'd like to be there in my short shorts and tank top. Hopefully it's tank top weather. You can have the guns out. Yeah. But look, outside, there you go. I was waiting for Chills to do it because we did that in the studio on Tuesday, and I said, holy smokes. What is the bicep plan? Wheels, I already know you're Jack. That's my dog right there. Yo, she has guns, man. Anyways, I digress. But also the competition. I think there's those type of teams that you're going to meet probably at the World Cup as well. Those teams where people will look at and be like, maybe you should beat, but you also just don't know the type of quality that a Ukraine and Ivory Coast will bring. And these are all top nations. So I think it's a nice barometer to see where this team's at a year out from the World Cup.
Yeah, Jordan, I mean, Wheels? Home games. Like, we've been begging for more home fixtures. And not just home fixtures, with all due respect to, like, Honduras and El Salvador and Curacao, who they're going to see in the Gold Cup. We've been there, done that. I feel like I've seen that game over and over and over again. And you're going to be playing very different teams when you're playing in the World Cup. And teams like Ukraine and Ivory Coast present a completely different profile. Ukraine's an interesting story. I mean, they've done really well as a footballing nation, despite dealing with incredibly difficult circumstances off the field, like just not being able to play at home, representing a war-torn country, that's being invaded. It's just been, I can't imagine what these players have gone through and what it takes. And there's all sorts of special events going on across the city of Toronto to celebrate Ukrainian football. People like Andrei Shevchenko are in town. So it's a big deal for the Canadian Ukrainian community as well. And they're a tough team to play against. Some of their star players aren't coming. Dobnik up front, Mikolenko, the Everton fullback's not there. Some other key players as well. But there's a strong nucleus of players. A lot of them play for Dynamo Kiev, Shakhtar Donetsk, Shiganov, very good attacking player. A gunner is going there as well. There's going to be some Arsenal representation as well. So I just look at this Ukraine team as being difficult, and Ivory Coast are a very difficult team to play. They're blessed with all kinds of attacking talent. I'm excited to see Adringa. There's plenty of attacking talent, and they're very young at the back, and they've lost some good young defending talent at home, but they're still very good. I think Ivory Coast might be even more of a difficult challenge as well. I meant to say with Ukraine, they have 2 top flight goalkeepers, as well as Trubin and Lunin, like both excellent goalkeepers playing for massive clubs. So you're going to see 2 very different teams that Canada is going to play against, which I think is a good thing because it's all about these experiences, how to match up against different types of opponents and different profiles heading into next summer's World Cup.
Based on a lot of what we even discuss on this show, the expectations, I mean, they've always been high for the Canadian team, but I think there's real disappointment, Jordan, after what happened at Nations League, because that's it. It's like, it's trophy or bust. And Jesse Marsch has pretty much said it himself, right? If we don't win the Gold Cup, then the tournament's a disappointment. Mm-hmm. So do you think then that the honeymoon phase is over?
Yeah, I think so.
With under Jesse
I think
Marsch.
so.
It's done, right? Like you got to start winning here.
Yeah, I think so. Everyone knows Jesse Marsch has done an incredible job coming in. And there were doubts. I was a doubter. I've never hated, but doubter when he first came in terms of how this team would play, if there's a plan B. But let's just break it all down in terms of all the games you played against France and the Netherlands, and you're playing this style. You're like, who is this Canadian team? Like, we know these players, but we don't know them to play this way. And then I'll say probably the Copas was the time where you come back from the honeymoon and you're still living in bliss at home. You're like, look, there's a lot to like. Where it died and where it became real was losing to Mexico in Nations League, because everyone was ready and pumped up to go see this team go to a final and compete, because that was the expectation to try to win something. Then you compound that as well from Alphonso Davies getting injured in the third place game, and there was a lot of kerfuffle, a lot going on there. That's when it became real. Now we're at a point where, of course, you want to see the style of Jesse Marsch take place, because that's just how Canada plays, but they got to win something now. And I'm talking about Ukraine and Ivory Coast competing, but most importantly for me, Gold Cup, winning something. This has to be the mandate now.
I get it. I do not think the honeymoon is anywhere near being over. I think that the Canadian public just loves this guy, just loves Jesse Marsch, and rightfully so. Like, he's a great spokesman. He comes out and says all the right things. He's hit the right tunes and the right chords playing up Canadiana, and that's coming from an American as well. He's been doing tours or in Halifax. He's watching CPL games in Vancouver. I mean, he's been just about everywhere, right? And he's really kind of embraced this challenge. So I don't think the honeymoon's over, because I right now think that it's kind of what he brings to the table rather than the performances on the field. I just don't think that the Canadian soccer fan base is at that point right now. Like, I can look at this team and objectively say that I want to see more from them. And I think by virtue, some of the results and the performances that they've had in these early days have come because there's some really good players on this Canadian side. Like, there's excellent players in this Canadian team, but I want to see them play in a different way. Like, I've heard a lot of people give Marsch's flowers for the way that he's brought this team together and instilled belief. Well, wasn't that the John Herdman edict? Isn't that what he did? The brotherhood, what it meant to represent Canada? I want to see an evolution in terms of the way that this team plays, which brings out the best of these players. I think we've seen it in flashes, but I don't think that we've seen it consistently enough. So that's what I want to see. So maybe the honeymoon should be over, but I just don't think it is. I just don't think we're there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be calling for his firing if this doesn't go well. So I guess what I mean by honeymoon is, like, it's the experimentation, because all Jesse Marsch said to us, and rightfully so, he knew he was coming on in. He's like, you got to have patience with me. I'm trying to work on this, press, or this high press, or now I'm trying to work on defense. And why isn't Jonathan David scoring? Well, because I'm asking him to be more defensive minded. Like, for me, I think a lot of people are kind of done with that. And that even really started to show in Copa America, when people were not happy with even Kyle Larin and kind of like him not scoring. Maybe they were going at him more than anything, but it's the coach who comes up with the lineup and the formation. So that's kind of, I think, what I feel like a little bit of that honeymoon is over, but for sure they still love Jesse Marsch. Yeah. He's also bringing in some, he's brought in some new faces, and we're going to see some, new names that fans even have to get to know here with the Canadian squad. So we're going to play a little game with it called Convinced or Unconvinced, in terms of their ability to contribute in a meaningful way to the national team. So you got to be convinced or you are not convinced. So the first name out of the gate, Jordan, Promise David.
This is really tough. And the reason why is because I've been singing his praises for a few months now. But keep in mind.
So how's it tough?
Because in the red and white, we haven't seen much from him.
I haven't seen anything. Much? We haven't seen anything.
I said much to try to slip that past the wheels, to be like, oh, maybe there was a little training match we didn't see. I'm still convinced. But we need to put into context. Yeah. He's 6'5". He moves like a train. I don't care that maybe he doesn't have all the defensive spots where to be, like Kyle Larin, and he's not going to start matches, but unleash him. I've been begging for this. I can't see a world going into the World Cup in the 70th minute where you cannot use someone like Promise David to get a goal, to hold up the ball in the corner, whatever you need to do as a striker. I'm convinced that he should be in the 23 and that he'll be someone that Jesse Marsch and Canada adore. So I'm convinced. Even though he's never played a minute, I'm still convinced.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm
But look at what he's recently coming off of.
It's a weird question.
Union winning the Belgian title first time in 90 years.
I know. If he played 2 games, I would be like, oh, yes, hell yes. But like, he hasn't played yet. So I'm convinced.
24 goals in 41 games this year, but it was a breakout campaign. He was just in the abyss before that. So, I mean, I will put up my hand. I do not watch the Belgian league on a week-to-week basis. I'm sure the quality is decent because a lot of big-name players move on and do very well at other clubs across Europe as well. I've less questions about him as a player more than how this fits, how this works into Jesse Marsch's team. Promise David was part of the Nations League squad, and last time I checked, especially against Mexico, they needed something different up top. Didn't come onto the field, didn't play a minute, which I think was a disappointment to many. So can he play that pressing, running, getting in behind style of Red Bull style of football that Marsch deploys? Or is he just a player that will come on, you throw him into the mixer if you need a goal late in games? That's why I'm not convinced, because I haven't seen it under Jesse Marsch and I haven't seen it for Canada. I rate the player. Certainly the personality is one that people are bigging up, but people, I've seen people throw out, this guy's going to be a star for Canada in 2026. It's like, can I see him play a game for Canada first? Not all players that have great club campaigns are a natural fit for their national teams as well. We see that across the board. So I'm convinced of the player, but I'm just not convinced yet about his role within this national team.
Can we stay on this topic quickly?
Again?
Quickly? I just want to land a plane.
Well, I was going to say, you have to see how Jesse Marsch is going to play him, but I will say, as far as yes, what he's done for club, but personality, he kind of strikes me as somebody who's very much like a Jonathan David. And I just feel like if he can be laid back, chill, even when I asked him, what is it that you want to do with the national? He's like, I just want to score goals. The guy's got the blinders on. I just have a nose for goal.
And that's a perfect.
So we'll see. But what he's saying and what he's done, club,
that's a perfect tee. That's a perfect tee up for how I feel, because I don't think that all 23 players have to fit Jesse Marsch's style. I think it's fine that you have a few Mavericks, a few players that color outside the lines. Promise David, with his profile, could be one of those guys, and all will be forgiven if he puts the ball in the back of the net, skips by 1 or 2 players, and is a guy to set up something. Wheels, you can't have everyone on the same page and be militant. You need sometimes some players that add something different, and he's that guy.
I'm just speaking from experience from watching Red Bull football, whether it's with Leipzig, whether it's with Salzburg, whether it's with New York. There's certain players that are a fit in playing the way, and this is the way that Jesse Marsch has been playing. This is part of what I want to see from Jesse Marsch. I'm with you. I want to see some evolution where it's just not that high pressing, try to turn over the other team's style, then capitalize, moving the ball quickly the other way. There's going to be teams that are going to contend. They're going to challenge Canada by just sitting back, especially with Canada playing home World Cup games. Say, break us down. Okay, break us down. So
we're getting at it. Wait. You're convinced. What were you again?
I'm not convinced yet because I don't know about the fit.
So we got convinced and unconvinced. I will say convinced. Promise David wins. Convinced or unconvinced on Luc de Fougerolles. Wheels.
I'm not convinced. I need to see him play, and he hasn't been playing first team senior football as well. Look, when he came into the Canadian squad last year, I'd seen him play in a Carabao Cup game. He looks composed, very much looks like a player for the future, but the future is now for this Canadian men's national team. And is he ready to step up and fill the boots of a Moise Bombito or Derek Cornelius? Those two players have set the bar incredibly high, but they also fit the profile that Jesse Marsch wants to see. That's why Kamal Miller was kind of pushed to the side when Marsch came in, because he wants big, athletic, fast defenders that can go on and press. So is de Fougerolles that style? And he's not challenging himself playing first team football with a senior men's club team. Look, this next season, these coming months are going to be crucial for him. He needs a new club this summer. He needs to play at the highest level possible at the senior level, and then we'll see. So yeah, he still needs to prove it to me.
I'm unconvinced. I mean, I think if you look at, we'll see this window, but with Moise Bombito out, who Jesse Marsch trusts, is a Waterman, is Miller going to get a sniff? Like, I look at these guys, and Luc de Fougerolles, his profile's great, but you got to agree with Wheels in terms of, like, to play that style and convince a coach when you're younger, you have to be a resounding yes to play over vets that are there. That's just what it is. So for me, it's unconvinced, but really like the kid and what he brings.
Convinced or unconvinced that, again, the ability to contribute meaningful.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be like a scout
with the tracksuit zipped up.
You have to make a prediction.
Yes.
I need you to put your scouting hats on. Okay. Convinced or unconvinced, Jordan, Daniel Jebbison.
I'm convinced. But if you think about this, now you have Kyle Larin, Jonathan David. We already put Promise in there. Oluwaseyi. And then Jebbison's the last one. Like, those are a lot of bodies in the attacking position. But I'm still convinced because off of the profile, and we've just been raving about him. Ontario-born kid, like, went to England, like, killed it, is doing well. You're like, come on, 2026, just committed to Canada. He's got to be in the plans. So I'm convinced.
Yeah, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here because he's barely played for Canada, but he has the pedigree. Like, he's playing Premier League football right now. Not a lot of it with Bournemouth, who are a really good team, under a manager, by the way, that likes to play a high-pressing, aggressive style of football. That's how they play at Bournemouth. And I think that kind of suits the way that Jesse Marsch wants to play here with Canada. The 5 attackers that are available for Canada, like, top-notch. Canada's never had the type of attacking talent that they have here today, but I'm convinced by his pedigree. I think his ceiling is incredibly high. I know there's a lot of hype around Promise David right now, but I think Daniel Jebbison can be an absolute crown jewel to wear in Jesse Marsch's crown, honestly. And if there's a player looking over his shoulder right now, it is probably Kyle Larin. Jebbison needs to play a little bit more, but he's all the attributes. He's a decent age. He's finally healthy. I'm pretty convinced that Jebbison's going to be a player for Canada.
What about Jaden Nelson, Wheels?
Not convinced yet. His form goes from, okay, I see it, to, forgettable at times. So just that level of consistency is not quite there. Also, Canada, he's going to be playing behind Ahmed, Schaffelberg, and then a number of players are going to be available also returning from injury as well in the next year as well. Liam Miller. I think Nelson is going to get every chance to make an impression this summer, and he's deserved that. He's earned that. I think he has the ability to do it, but at this point, I'm not convinced. He needs to show it on a more regular basis, more often, more consistently.
I'm not convinced either, and I think that favors him. Like, I look at the fact that he's paid his dues and coming into this season, specifically that Saprissa game, first leg, where he kind of falls asleep a little bit, but he's grown into it and starting to show like his quality. But you have to go with that attitude, that chip on your shoulder, like, I'm not going to the World Cup right now. I'm not in Jesse Marsch's plans. But if you can play like that and be diligent defensively every single time, every training, every game, if he gets 15 minutes, he has to be one of the top players. If he can do that, I'm sure that he'll be one of those guys. But to Wheels' point, that position right there seems like a position of strength. And most importantly, you get on the pitch if you do everything that you need to do defensively. When I think about Jaden Nelson, I know what he can do on the ball, but that defensive work is probably what's going to need to increase.
I should also mention Tajon Buchanan. I forgot to mention his name, but full credit, Andy, to Jaden Nelson, because he's put himself right back in the mix.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't have been able to say that even 4 months ago, but he's put himself in the mix, which is great news for him.
Continue pushing, man.
Jordan, how are you feeling about Niko Sigur?
So I think I'm convinced, sorry, to answer your question, because I know if I kept going for 20 seconds and I didn't answer, you're going to give me a stank eye. So I am convinced. But the reason being is because now with a year out to the World Cup, having someone that could pop in on both sides as a fullback and maybe in the middle, just like the fact that he's so versatile, I think goes into his favor in terms of keeping him in a squad. Because I know what that looks like as a player, but also like a coach. When you look to your bench and you have to figure out, and Jesse Marsch has even talked about fullbacks, right? Like if Davies is out or Adekugbe is injured, or we saw what happens if Johnson is out as well, you have to make shift. You have to do things differently. You're going to play a player that you trust, that has a savvy football IQ, and that's Sigur. So I'm convinced.
Yeah, I like the player. I think he is a high ceiling, but he's not there quite yet. And look, he did well against the U.S. coming in, playing under difficult circumstances. But the question is about their role within the team and whether they can be a considerable contributor. I look at a back four for Canada, which is going to become World Cup time, incredibly difficult to even get on the field. What scenario you're taking off Alistair Johnston and Alphonso Davies? And if you do, Richie Laryea seems to be the best stand-in option. Can Sigur put himself in the midfield mix? We'll have to see the progression, like of players like Kone and Saliba. It's going to be difficult for him to carve out a role. Can he make the squad? Absolutely, and his versatility helps. And I do think he's very much a player for the future. But over the course of the next year, can he work himself into a significant role with this team? Not quite sure.
One more. Convince her and convince Wheels on Nathan Saliba.
This is my guy. I called it immediately after the World Cup. I think we were asked the question on this program. What's one player by the time 2026 rolls around who can work himself into potentially a starting role or a significant role within the national team? It's Nathan Saliba. It is at a position of need for Canada. I think they need more quickness, more legs in that position, especially playing this style of play. I think Saliba fits this role even better than a Mathieu Chouanière right now. I just do. I like Chouanière, but I think Saliba has a higher ceiling. Reports have come out on Thursday that Anderlecht are looking to potentially secure his services. Obviously, the connection there with Olivier Renard, I think that bodes well. If he starts next season playing in Belgium for Anderlecht and builds and has a complete season, I think he works himself into the mix where he could be a key contributor come next summer. I think he's that good. I think his potential is that high in a position of not a lot of depth or high quality depth for Canada. So yeah, I'm convinced.
I hate to do this because he's such a talented player and he's very promising, but I'm unconvinced. And that is because of so many games I've seen at CF Montreal. I know that you're going to go to Anderlecht and potentially play and maybe sign, and that would be a great move for him. But in terms of knocking out someone, because that's what this is. It's a competition. Who are you knocking out in the midfield? I still put Kone, and I'm going off of the signs I see with Marsch and how much he's trusted Chouanière in recent months and every time that they played in this past year. That Chouanière is ahead of him now. I agree with Wheels that Saliba has a higher ceiling, but this is a year. So how many times you come into the window are you going to grow and really leapfrog a player that you're playing under? Still unconvinced, so he has a lot to do.
Less than 3 minutes, and I really want to get this in because I know this. I have a feeling we're on opposite sides here. But what is more important, the Canadian Shield results or the Gold Cup results, Jordan?
This one for me is not even up for debate. It's Gold Cup, and I understand. I know a lot of people are gonna say why. You're playing Ivory Coast, you're playing Ukraine. These are teams or nations that you're gonna see at the World Cup. I get that. But for me, I think tournament football is different. You're with your club, you're with your boys all the time. You have to adjust to what's given in terms of different style and play. And people are getting injured and new bodies have to emerge and step up. You don't have a week in between games. You don't have, you're playing these two games. Everything's concentrated and you have to be the best. And we've seen with Canada throughout the years that they will have a good game here or they'll step up to a team there. When it comes to winning, that's where they're falling short. You have to get that monkey off the back. And if you can do that a year out from the World Cup, you have all to believe in. You're feeling like, we could do this. We won the Gold Cup. We've obviously beat a big nation. Let's go out and make a claim at the World Cup. So for me, that has to be the biggest thing, is actually lifting something.
So you want a trophy. All right, Wheels?
But some of Canada's key players aren't going to be there as well. So I look, my eyes on the prize, and that's 2026. You need to play teams like Ivory Coast and Ukraine to really test yourself in a different way. We've been there, done that with a lot of these Concacaf nations. The U.S. isn't sending their best squad. Look, I think that winning the Gold Cup would be outstanding. It would be great. But in terms of preparation for a home World Cup in 2026, nothing replicates big games against big teams that are going to play in a different way. So I'm more looking at the way that Canada will play against Ukraine and Ivory Coast rather than the potential result of tournament football in the Gold Cup.
Do I have to break a tie again?
I was looking at you like this.
I'm going to go trophy as well. I'm just going to go trophy as well because of what it also just means to the confidence of the players. I think trophy matters, and also just the fan base. Like, I don't want to say 2000 anymore, guys. I don't want to say 2000 anymore. Just get a trophy so we can start saying 2025.
Shout out to Curacao. Shout out to Curacao. Can't wait for that game.
Anyways, great stuff. These are things to look forward to. Canadian Shield, Gold Cup. That is Jordan Wilson. That's Gareth Wheeler. I'm Annie Petrillo. You've been watching One Soccer today. Thanks for tuning in. And we will see you next time. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just felt the need to show off you. Bye.
Farming later today.